Make more good in the all-new Sportage X-Pro. Kia, movement that inspires.
Quaker Steak and Lube is throwing open the garage doors and setting up the umbrellas. It's patio season. Come enjoy great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube, but we're really amping up our event calendars for our favorite time of year. Visit thelube.com to find out what's happening at your local lube this season. Lunch, happy hour, dinner, or late night, indoors or outside, at Quaker Steak and Lube, you'll always find big flavors, friendly faces, and lots of fun.
New Trail Brewing Company proudly crafts their beers right here in central Pennsylvania. Brewed with only the best possible ingredients, New Trail produces a variety of year-round brands as well as weekly experimental recipes. New Trail Broken Heels is Pennsylvania's favorite local hazy IPA. This beer is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected Citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is perfect for a pregame tailgate all the way through the victory celebration.
What's the best mid-size pickup? Tacoma. What's the #1 mid-size truck in resale value? Tacoma. Want to get great gas mileage, 4 doors, and 4-wheel drive? Tacoma. Sioka Toyota of Williamsport has over 25 available right now. You can lease a brand new, never-driven Toyota Tacoma for just $379 a month. That's 30 months, $3,000 cash or trade, 10,000 miles a year. This is while supplies last. Buy yours or reserve yours today and see the Sioka difference. And remember, tell them Johnny's saying.
You just didn't want to hear.
A very pleasant good afternoon as we welcome you into the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show here at Quaker Steak and Lube in beautiful State College. And coming off
somewhat beautiful day.
A strong first half and strong fourth quarter for the Penn State football team in the win over Michigan State. And the Nittany Lions do go 10-2 as we were projecting last week, and not many were projecting before the season. And I just want to start there, just looking back at the season. Yeah, no, I think we were both a little higher on the possibilities. You were more committed to the high-end possibilities than I was. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think what this season was about, and what I said from day one is that I want to have a good feeling about this program in terms of feeling good about James Franklin being the head coach, in terms of the overall direction of the program, the recruiting, all of that. And, you know, I said so many times, I don't know what the record needs to be, and it's not to me as much about the record, although that obviously is a factor, but it's really about how it finishes up and just, you know, looking back at it, how you feel. The Michigan game, obviously, is the one huge disappointment, but
I thought a little better about it
at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, this is a Michigan team that, you know, we'll see what happens, but I think is certainly in contention for winning it all this year, and in which case you're like, well, I mean, yeah, you still wanted to be competitive at the very least, but if you're going to get blown out by a single team, have it be to the national champion. If you know, and I think Michigan's right there. I was very impressed with what Michigan did and the way the Wolverines were able to put their foot down in that fourth quarter. No, I really thought that they had a chance. I forget who it was. Somebody, was it? Man, I watched way too much TV over the weekend. I think it was on the Big Ten Network, though, that they had somebody that had talked to, it was 15 coaches, and not necessarily head coaches, but 15 coaches in the Big Ten scouting out the Michigan-Ohio State game. And I think it was 10-5 favoring Ohio State in the game. But the what everybody was agreeing on was that the running game was going to be the key. And because of that, Michigan, you know, had a chance. But I did not. I really thought that was going to be the back and forth that it was for the better part of the game throughout. I certainly did not see if you had asked me before the game, all right, this game is back and forth, and then somebody hits the accelerator and puts it away in the fourth quarter, going away, I think most people would have said, okay, well, then that'd be Ohio State.
If it's going back and forth, Ohio, it
if it's going back and forth, and then somebody pulls away late and widens the gap. I mean, Ohio State, right, because of the athleticism, but or perceived athleticism.
Yeah. I will. The hat is off to Michigan. It really is. I mean, as much as I don't like them and despise them, and
there's a couple of things I just want to talk about there too, because 2 years ago we were. Not just the Michigan fan base was talking about, all right, does this need to be the final year? And then obviously they go out, have the season they did, and now they've put it back-to-back seasons, and now all of a sudden it's Michigan that at the moment is the head of the Big Ten, and then Ohio State a very close second, and then right now probably Penn State a fairly solid third.
Sure. Easily
at the moment. Yeah. This year, but I mean, coming off the last couple of years now with Michigan, and the overall record here for James Franklin is solid. I mean, the last 2 seasons notwithstanding, this is overall a pretty impressive record that he's put together, and Ohio State and Michigan are the top 2 programs right now in the conference, and that's who you're chasing down and trying to get past. But as we've talked about, Goon, I think being patient and, once a coach gets ingrained, then you can make the subtle changes. I think it's much more difficult, and I know there are still people out there, and I get it to a certain extent, who say, man, we're just not ready for a change. That's fine, but you go back more often than not. You go back a couple of squares, and not that there's any danger of James Franklin leaving now. I don't think either to take another job, which the Auburn speculation just kind of amused me more than anything. But and Penn State's not getting rid of him, obviously, coming off of a 10-2 season, regardless of what happens in the bowl game. And certainly not getting rid of him when you have the stable of young talent. You have, a stud offensive tackle saying he's coming back for another year, which might be the best piece of news this program has had over the last couple of weeks. I mean, it is setting up for Penn State to at least have a run next year at getting over the hump, getting into the playoffs, and the whole bit.
Yeah.
And I think you need to at least and will let that play out. But I mean, I think even the most ardent James Franklin haters, you gotta hit pause here for a second, kids, and acknowledge that I think he has figured some things out. I think having a staff together for an offensive staff together for 2 years was important. Hopefully you can keep Manny Diaz. To me, that's the biggest question mark now going into next season. And listen, it's not that I think if Diaz leaves, Penn State implodes, because Franklin's record of going out and getting big name and impact coordinators is now very good. But boy, you would feel good. I won't speak for anybody else. I would feel really good if both coordinators are back and the majority of that coaching staff is back, along with what we now know are the pieces coming back in terms of the players, both offensively and defensively. Abdul Carter, and there's still room for improvement. There were a couple of plays where I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you doing on Saturday? But there's a lot more plays where I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Unbelievable. How do you do that?
How are you doing that?
And so, it's not just the offensive backfield when you talk about these guys that can have an impact next year. I think, from the tight ends to the improved play with the O-line and the potential for that group to truly become an outstanding part of this program next year. I think there's a lot of things to feel good about. And I don't know how you couldn't have a good feeling about this program if you're a fan right now moving forward. To me, coming off of the Michigan loss and then the Ohio State loss, the question was, how does this team respond? They responded just fine after the Michigan loss. We're right there with Ohio State. I mean, that was a game that obviously could have gone either way. And yes, I get it. You want to win that. You didn't. But, man, you closed out as strongly as I can remember this team closing out in recent memory for sure. And really did improve, I think, each week. All of the facets, or at least most of the facets of the game. The kicking game, we can, I'll chalk up to an off day for now. There were some hiccups throughout the season with that at different places, but I think there's a lot of reason for optimism. I'm hoping. So I think the main objectives for this season, to me, were met and surpassed, really, by the way this team played, the way this team responded. And listen, I do think getting a big bowl victory, and I'm hoping Penn State gets a chance to play a team that is ranked higher, like a top 5 or 6 team.
What we're getting projected right now is driving me nuts.
Yeah, it is.
Tulane does not move. It doesn't move the needle at all.
No,
really, it does not move it at all, and it's disappointing.
Yes, but we'll see.
It's not set in stone.
Yeah, and there's a few things that we got to see how this championship weekend plays out.
Anything like last week, it's gonna be awesome.
Yes, and there's a lot of things that people are presuming right now that I think you got to be careful in how much you take for granted here. We'll see how it all shakes out, and hope that Penn State does get an opportunity to take on a marquee opponent, and it would help for the program's sake and the fan base's sake to get a name program as well as a marquee. You could argue Tulane one way or the other about marquee this season. You can't argue that that game is not going to get Penn State Nation especially fired up.
No.
The way a USC matchup or a whole host of others.
Total side
Clemson
note: I did talk to my friends in Texas yesterday just to let them know, like, hey, we're projecting to go to the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah,
and he goes, well, that's going to suck down here because down here's TCU fan. They might be out traveling on with their own games, so there might not be that'd be a tough ticket to sell down there in Texas. So
yeah.
All right, so where we're talking about Michigan is where we want to be. They did the exact progression because of what James Franklin was talking about, getting that next elite level, and that is winning the Big Ten and getting into the playoff like they did last year. Now, this season doesn't mean squat if they go out and drop an egg like they did last year in that first playoff game.
Yep, agreed.
And I think that they have learned a lot from last season, a lot more than Michigan teams usually have. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we may be watching them on New Year's Eve saying, what is the issue with Michigan in postseason? I don't know. I know it might be the case, but we shall see. But to go back to what I said before, I did not see Saturday coming. I really didn't. You didn't. It was impressive to watch. Ohio State is a loaded ball club, and they got humiliated. So I go back to what I was, after the Michigan game this year, then after the Ohio State game, a good friend of mine, Brad Jones, said, listen, man, we're built, and Chris was talking about it too, Booch. We're built to beat Ohio State because they have been the top tier team for the last 15 years. So you recruit and you build your team around them to beat the number one team. Harbaugh sat back and said, you know what? I'm going to go back to my old school roots with Bo Schembechler and create this old school Big Ten bludgeoning team and just bludgeon people to death. And that's what they have been doing. So if that scenario works at the next level, a.k.a. playoff game, then more power to them. But we shall see when that happens.
Yep.
But I did want to remind you. I did say Purdue 2 weeks ago was going to be the representative.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. How about the Goon? My God. I had a 1 in 17 chance of one of the Western teams getting into that slot. But, I'm very happy with how this season ended, and how, I mean, obviously the wound wasn't so sore after watching Michigan do to Ohio State exactly what they had done to us, and that was just, again, bludgeon us. They beat them down, took their souls, and it's very, very, very impressive what they did. I take my hat off to them, and that takes a lot for me to say.
Yes. No, I'm with you. It's an impressive team that they have put together. We'll
see how it goes this weekend. They're a 77-point underdog or favorite against the Purdue Boilermakers. And then, honest to God, I really want to see how it works out in the playoffs. So, but other than that, I mean, we got to talk about the Big Ten West is loading up here right now, bud. Bringing in Matt Rule, Luke Fickell.
Yep.
I mean, there's some pretty big names right there, bud. And we were going to big programs, and they have some deep pockets, and they can make some things happen.
Yeah, and I think Matt Rule is a great hire for Nebraska because it is a rebuilding, right? Yeah, and it is a rebuilding project, and that is that is what he has done.
He had Baylor at 11 wins 2 years after complete devastation. That's a better job than Bill O'Brien did here.
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
Yep. And I think, there are different reasons that things work and don't work in the NFL. But, I mean, Matt Rule clearly knows how to coach kids and recruit and the whole bit. And I think I really think that's a great hire by Nebraska. Now, that being said,
he's in Nebraska. He's not in Philadelphia. He's not in
and
East
so
Texas.
What does a great hire necessarily mean in terms of, do I think Nebraska is going to go out and start winning 4 out of every 5 Big Ten West titles? No, because it's just the same thing we talk about in the East. You are competing against other really good coaches and programs that are all in that also have, solid histories here in Iowa and Wisconsin. And now you have Illinois and Minnesota, both rising and both with, coaches that have national clout. So that, making a great hire I don't know that it necessarily means that Nebraska, I'm not ruling anything out in terms of Nebraska competing for Big Ten titles. But, again, you can hire, and that's why I keep coming back to Penn State and James Franklin. And I know fans, there is at least a segment of the fans. It's like, oh, we're just not winning big enough and this and that. And it's like, what is it now? This is the 4th 10-win season, right, in the last 7 years. Is that the right math?
67, 16, 17, it was 2. It was Rose Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl.
Seasons we're contested. So you're talking about that's a substantial winning rate. And you take the 2 seasons and throw them out or leave them in the mix, whatever.
Type numbers.
Yes, and so whoever you think it is that should be here instead of Franklin, for those that think that Franklin should pack his bags and get out of here. I'm just telling you, there is zero guarantee, and I don't care who you bring in, that coach is going to be able to put anything better together in terms of on-field performance than what we've seen. And for the folks, I've got into a couple of not even debates or arguments, discussions about game day coaching, because at least the perception is Franklin's a great recruiter, but not a great game day coach. And I'm not even going to argue that point.
It is what it is.
So here's my point is what I will tell you is that you take the best X's and O's coach who is not a great recruiter and put him against the great recruiter who doesn't know X's and O's at all. And I'm telling you, the great recruiter is going to win 80 to 90% of those games. It is, and there isn't a coach around that won't tell you if the choice is give me the advantage in terms of knowing the scheme against this other coach, but with lesser players on my side, or give me the better players and give the other guy a slight advantage in terms of how to scheme stuff. There isn't a coach alive that's not going to give me the better players. Yeah. And when you look at that Penn State roster right now and the number of kids that are going to be going on to the NFL, both the seniors off this year's team, but also all of the underclassmen, the freshmen all the way through the junior class. I don't know, and obviously I grew up admiring Joe Paterno, will always admire Joe Paterno, will always revere what he did for this school and this program. But Goon, I honestly don't know that there was a season that Joe Paterno had more talent on this Penn State roster than what this team is going to have coming back next year. I really don't. And that's a debatable point. I'm not sitting here telling you flat out there's no discussion. Certainly the 94 team was loaded on offense and had some defensive talent. I mean, I'm not saying that there wasn't anything there, but the 86 team had some talent.
What did they have?
You go back to the 79 team was actually, and I'm talking about 79, not the 78 team that was in the Sugar Bowl, obviously was talented. But that 79 team, in terms of just pure talent, was up there. Now, it didn't, for a variety of reasons, didn't live up to its potential. But I'm just telling you, this team is loaded, is my point. And I think with the coordinators that they have and everything else that's in place, the lessons that have been learned, and all of that, I think these next two seasons should be really, really fun and maybe wildly fun for Penn State fans.
I mean, I told you a couple weeks ago what this team reminds me of, and that was this 92 team. Yeah. And that was because in 1991 and 92, we had just absolute stud talents in this and that, but we weren't winning big games, we weren't winning titles and stuff like that. It was different scenarios because it wasn't playoffs or stuff like that, but either or. But that led to the big 1994 season. So 1993, it was I compare this team to 93, and that is that this team, great leadership from the top down, great younger guys, and that's the other thing that people aren't talking about. Michigan, they announced 44 seniors Saturday. Yep, 44. We have 21 kids out there get announced for their last game. So I mean, that's a huge difference. That's 20-some people coming in. So they're going to go from an older team now to, we'll see what Michigan is next year. It is what it is. We'll get there. Yeah. But right now, our team is so young that these kids are learning, and they learned they learned how to be a good team, I think, from these older seniors. And the last 2 years, they didn't have good leadership at all. I mean, that's well documented, well known. Me and you could sit there and watch every game. We could say that. Yeah. Having to find out about that, and then it's true. So going forward, I think that these guys are going to know what it takes to win big games because they did it this year, get to that next level because they're going to be older, bigger, stronger by another year, and then even a second year coming out 2 years from now. So I'm okay with where we're at right now. I really, really, truly am. I mean, bowl game aside or whatnot, but I like where we're tracking right now. I really, really do. I just think that, this time last year, me and you were despondent, very despondent because we were so high on that team last year to have what happened to it, to have what happened to that team when those guys just seemed like they just quit, and they did. They didn't want to be out there, and I hated to see that. Now, we lose a huge, brutal game to Michigan this year. We go back and win one more big game over Minnesota when we could have packed it in. I think in the last few years we would have packed it in. Then we go out and lose a very tough game to Ohio State, and then, lose that game to Ohio State at home. We're in it and lose it late the way we did, and then to go out and win your last 3 or 4 games the way we did. You got to say that these kids are they're buying into it. They're great leadership, and it's only going to get better. It's the groundwork has been laid. The foundation is there. Now you bring another great recruiting class in, and you can put even the transfer portal because there's a ton of guys in this portal right now. Have you seen some of the guys coming out? Oh, yeah. Holy crap. So, I mean, James does a very good job with that and filling holes with that and with recruits. So, hey, man, I mean, this time next year we could be talking about, Big Ten title and going into the playoff. And that's the way Michigan did it. Get to the playoff. That was their goal. Win the Big Ten. Go to the playoff. All right, now we're going to go kick the door in, and we're at the playoff. They didn't do good last year. Now they got to go out and win it. So we shall see what Michigan does. But that's where we got to be this time next year. Because you can't talk about being an elite program like James does all the time and not eventually get there. I mean, you've been here 8 years now. It'll be year 9. Okay, are we going to get there next year and the year after? I think are huge seasons for James. But let's enjoy this one still.
Yeah, no, and I think they are primed to make that final push now for
they're set up for it. They
a
really
lot
are.
of the reasons that you just talked about. And the other thing to me that is worth noting and maybe appreciating as a Penn State fan is the number of guys that are and every school. I mean, you're going to lose players every year. That's just that is not going to
that's
change
not going away
for any school, and that's Alabama. I mean, whatever school you hold up as the standard or whatever coach, they're losing players every year. That's just, now it's how many and, how significant for your program are those losses and where are the replacements and how good are the replacements. I mean, that's all part of the equation now moving forward. But I think the number of players that Penn State has committed, and I mean committed, and staying throughout the history of the program does speak volumes about the culture that is created here and how comfortable kids are with their development and with the team concept. And once you get that established, witness Michigan, witness Alabama,
correct,
witness
Clemson,
all
Georgia.
Of the Lincoln Riley's going to do it at USC. Did it at Oklahoma. That stuff does matter, and it does. Kids see it and they feel it when they're on the campus and they want to be part of it. And that's, again, can you get that next step now? We'll see. But even if that next step, and I really do think that next step is going to come. Let me go on record and say I think, at least once out of the next 2 years, Penn State will be in the playoffs. If you pin me down right now and put me full of truth serum, I really think Penn State is going to be there each of the next 2 seasons. I really do. With the caveat,
bullish orange, baby.
Well, with the caveat that the injuries stay at bay. That you have a healthy quarterback, at least one healthy running back, and tight end, the whole bit. I mean, that's obviously a component that can change the projection pretty quickly there if you get a couple of key injuries. But health provided, I think that this program is on the brink of kind of crashing through and getting to that next level. And now whether they win a national title, again, it is really hard, folks. There are I don't know, probably 50 programs now that I would classify as all in terms of athletic department is committed to trying to win a national championship. Money is there, facilities are there, coaches. I mean, that's 50, and I give or take a few. I think that's about the right number that are all in. And a lot of those programs are not.
50 of them have a shot to win a national title?
Absolutely
not. How many teams do you think on an annual basis?
But that's what I'm saying. That tells you how hard it is. I mean, each year there's maybe 5 to 8 at the most that you're like, okay, realistically, I could see this team winning it all. And you always have a team that, South Carolina this year at the end of the year. I don't think any of those teams are all that disappointed they're not having to play them. I don't think they're one of the best teams, but obviously for 2 weeks there, they showed they could hang at least with top 10 teams, if not top 4 programs. So, I'm not predicting that Penn State will win a national title, but I think Penn State is going to be right there in terms of the big boys, the elite in college football. And I think that is very significant. I mean, on a bunch of different fronts, I think you ought to be sitting back and appreciating and enjoying that if you are a Penn State fan. So
sure, man.
We'll see.
I mean, these are great freaking times to be.
Yeah, and we'll see how everything plays out. Again, it's.
I love what Nick Saban said about you win an NCAA title versus a Super Bowl. In the NCAA, in the Super Bowl, you win a Super Bowl. Okay, congratulations, you get the 32nd pick of the draft. Bye-bye. You know what I mean? You're picking the last guy in each round, and this and that, even if you have a pick. He said, Nick Saban said, well, in the NCAA, they reward you with the top 5 players in the country. I mean, you're at that pedestal, so you're seeing that with Michigan.
Yeah.
I mean, some guys that are already committed to other Big Ten schools, i.e. Nebraska and/or Wisconsin. The curtain's wide open again. I saw some kids jumping from Wisconsin. One kid committed to Nebraska or to Michigan today, and I was like, man, that's what's going to happen. I mean, we got to get to that point. We need to get to that point where everybody wants to play here.
And with Luke Fickell going to Wisconsin, that completely changed my mind. Completely. Well, has there ever been, and I did zero research on this. I was thinking about it this morning and then did zero follow-up on it. So maybe it's good. You'll come back and knucklehead. There was so-and-so and so-and-so. In the Big Ten Conference, do you ever remember 2 head coaches who coached at other Big Ten schools previously as head coaches? Because I don't. And again, I did zero research on this, but I don't remember. It's been rare that there's been a coach who changed in conference. I mean, there's been plenty that have gone from.
So you're saying Fickell played at Ohio State, Rule played at Penn State. Now they're at both 2 different schools.
No.
Oh.
I'm saying Fickell coached at Ohio State.
Oh.
And Bielema coached at Wisconsin, and they are now both head coaches at other programs in the Big Ten. Has that happened where you had 2 head coaches who are both at their second in-conference school
coaching
at the same time? Because it's not that often that you get a coach. Because largely, if you are having that type of success, you're retiring, or maybe going to. And I can't even think of an example. But maybe go to an SEC school. I mean, Bielema, I guess, did leave to go to an SEC school, but I just don't remember 2 head coaches on their second stints in the Big Ten, and both fan bases being genuinely and rightfully, I think, excited about the hires. Like, it's not that they're hiring a guy just be a retread that you're not.
Illinois should be extraordinarily happy with the hire of Bielema. I mean, they each completely in 1 year,
for sure,
2 years, completely changed that whole attitude of that team.
But it's just not often that you see.
I'm with you. I mean, I'm thinking in my head,
the SEC has had coaches that have.
There's another one now
gone through.
Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, but I just don't remember. And again, maybe I'm missing something obvious, but I don't remember the Big Ten having 2 head coaches who were head coaches in other Big Ten schools. Jerry friggin'
DiNardo and Lee Corso, I had in Indiana. I mean, I know they both coached in Indiana, but I don't think they coached anywhere else in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
they stunk.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there have been many.
Wow, you're right. I'm thinking like Lou Holtz because he was at Minnesota, but there was no other Big Ten team. He was at Notre Dame. Yeah.
So
that's a great.
Not relevant to anything. It just
would you call Fickell the head coach of Ohio State, though? I mean, yes. I mean, he was because he was the head coach for the. I know what you're saying. I'm not pulling
the interim or not, but
that's a great comment. That's a great.
Anyways, I'd be curious to see how Fickell does at Wisconsin and how Rule does at Nebraska. Again, I think they're both really good hires. Whether or not they transform anything in terms of the fortunes of the programs, because, again, I think Illinois is here to stay. Minnesota, I think, is here to stay for as long as Flex stays there. I mean, and I get that right now the perception, well, I don't know, it's more than the perception. The results tell you that the East is above the West, but from a coaching standpoint, again, top to bottom in the conference, you're hard pressed. I mean, Schiano and you're looking at the bottom programs. right now. You're looking at them, Northwestern. I mean, Pat Fitzgerald and Greg Schiano. Are you? Who is Rutgers or Northwestern going to get that you'd feel better about as a head coach than those two? I mean, I just think top to bottom right now, the Big Ten coaching is as strong as it's.
I think Fitz has the most job security of any college coach.
I probably would agree with that.
I mean, Schiano's pretty close second, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, Pat's got to do something soon because they're putting a lot of money into that program right now. And they got nothing out of it this year.
Yeah,
and I mean nothing. So
I will be curious.
Somebody said this to me the other day. Yep. I said, "Could you imagine being the like Illinois, Purdue, or well, I guess not Indiana, but Indiana's in the East, but Northwestern? Like, hey, by the way, Nebraska's got Matt Rule." Luke Fickle's at Wisconsin. Then we're bringing USC and UCLA in. So that's your new Big Ten West right there. So, good luck with that. I think
they will do away with the East-West thing.
I think they have to.
Pretty much a given at this point.
I did hear the SEC is actually correcting or fixing up their schedule a little bit where they're not having those pods where Georgia and Alabama never, ever, ever play, but they're in the same conference. I heard that they're going to get rid of those, and I would suspect that the Big Ten after this year
concept.
Yeah, right.
Having the teams in the same conference play each other?
Yes. I mean, jeez. What was the one that, they always won? At one point when they changed the Big Ten a little bit, they said that in your career you will have a home and away game against every Big Ten team. That's the way it was being set up and stuff like that. And you imagine going to Alabama and don't play Georgia your whole career there. It's weird to me. It's just weird.
Yeah.
You don't play Florida, whatever. That is what it is. They have it all set up. They know what the hell they're doing down there. And that's the other thing that drives me crazy is the selection stuff. I know we were away last week, and I know Tennessee lost their quarterback and they have 2 losses, but they're against 2 pretty good teams or whatever. Not losing South Carolina.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see what the shakeup is today. I really, really am, and that is that it just seems they just constantly rank the SEC teams just so high. So when they do lose, it's to another SEC team who gets that kind of the dap from it.
Well, and I'm telling you, Alabama's sitting there, and I'm not even saying it's wrong or anything, but Alabama is not out of this playoff mix by any stretch right now.
It's driving me nuts.
And listen, I mean, truthfully, I think Alabama's the best 2-loss team in the country, and I think Alabama's probably better than a lot of the 1-loss teams out there.
Well, LSU losing this past week really hurt Alabama because that was one of their losses. So
for sure, but if LSU turns around and beats Georgia. which I'm telling you, I know
it would not surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting it, and I'm not predicting it. And same thing, I'm telling you, Purdue has a fighter's chance against Michigan because to beat Michigan, you're going to have to outscore them. Well, what's the one thing Purdue can do, right?
You got to stop that run, dude.
So, but not if you score it. And I mean, Purdue is the one team that I think could conceivably go score for score with Michigan, right? Like even as good as Michigan's defense, and I think Michigan's going to win that game comfortably. But
correct,
I do think there is a chance. You get a couple of turnovers, along the way if you're Purdue, and if you're on with that passing game. When a quarterback is on, you can play great defense, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't.
I got to ask you, it just came in, it just popped in my head as I saw his name up there, but Kirk Ferentz, my God, man. I mean, we're talking about Pat Fitzgerald having carte blanche at his university. I mean, Ferentz has had that for a long time, but, I mean, he's got to get a little shorter to me, right?
I don't know. When you look at some of the off-field issues that they've had under his tenure, it's actually fairly remarkable to me that he
and then lose the Nebraska team this year in a rivalry game and just have nothing, just do nothing. You had to score 17 points in the fourth quarter just to make it somewhat interesting. I mean, I don't know, man. Crazy.
Let's talk just briefly on the Michigan State tunnel situation and the sanctions coming down there. The one thing, I mean, again, I'm not blaming Michigan. I don't, but when you look at the Penn State situation and like you are asking for issues there, and it is something. I mean, the Big Ten basically told Michigan, "You've got to address this in a better form than you have to this point."
I just can't believe that they say there's never been an incident in 100 years there, and that's complete crap.
Well,
it's complete crap. It's just other teams just like don't let it affect them. But you have these two teams running up the hill, running up this tunnel, and it's not a short tunnel. It's not like you're going up 50 feet. You're going up like 100 yards. I mean, it's all the way to the end of that stadium. And there's two doors to get in your locker room, and you're trying to fit 112 people into that locker room, and Michigan's coming up behind you, and they're hooting and hollering and screaming and yelling and jawing. I just cannot believe that was the first ever time that there was an incident like that. Now, a lot of what came down from the Big Ten finally, I mean, why did they wait till the end of the season to make this? I don't know. I don't like the whole why they waited until the Monday or Tuesday after of the season to make these. I don't appreciate it. I don't agree with it. They should have made their ruling sooner than later. So they suspended some of their guys for the rest of the season, much of that they already were. Some guys for next season. Michigan got a $100,000 fine because a fan made contact with Mel Tucker in the tunnel. So I mean, there's something going on here. There's inadequate security there.
Yeah,
but it's just not at all okay, Michigan State for what they did in that tunnel with the fight and jumping those guys. I mean, you got to have respect. And I remember a couple of years ago, I was on my little rant during the bowl week when every time an opposing player runs to somebody's sidelines, like 50 guys got to get in his face, and all the coaches got to wrap around the opposing player to protect him. That's a lack of respect. You're out there playing a game. You're on a scholarship. I'm on a scholarship. We're out here to win a game. You're trying to win the game. You're trying to beat me. I'm trying to beat you. Show some respect to your opponent.
Yeah,
and that's all it is. It's complete disrespect, and I just drives me absolutely bonkers when it happens. So I'm watching that Florida State game Friday night. I mean, every time anything happened on the sideline, it was like World War III ready to break out there, and it's like. How can you play in that environment? That's not football. That's just stupidity. There's just a lack of respect in sportsmanship anymore.
Yeah, although those rivalry games have all – I mean, Penn State had some sideline more than incidents. I mean, it got ugly.
Time a opposing player.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm saying, I'm with
you. There was definitely fights. Notre Dame's tunnel was just as bad as Michigan's. But it was just closer to the locker room, so you're only around each other for a quick hot second.
Yeah.
But definitely there's an issue at Notre Dame's locker, their tunnel. But Michigan needs to fix it, and they will. I mean, the $100,000 worth of fixing. And it's a huge tunnel. They could actually put a partition in there, and it wouldn't be a problem. That could be the easy solution, though. There you go, Michigan sideline. So I remember going up there after they beat us in 2005, and they were screaming on the way up, that's 7, or whatever the hell it was. How many times in a row they had beaten us? Maybe even 11. I don't remember. 7 out of 11 years or something like that, because there's times we didn't play them. But I remember them sitting there, and I was just like, man, I wanted to turn around and go beat some ass, but man. It makes you upset, but I mean, it is what it is. You go out there and win and make them shut their mouth. That's what you got to do.
Yeah. Big opportunity for Penn State basketball tonight, Goon, and I'm looking forward to this Big Ten.
It's the first away game, first true away game
matchups. Yep.
Clemson's not a great team, but they're not a bad team. So I mean, it's a name. It's not a blue blood, but it sure is. I mean, I'm looking forward to that game big time.
It's a good opportunity. Yes. I think for. Kind of
it's
another
a good name
step.
Victory in the end of the season when you go on who have they beaten, what quad for the tournament and stuff. I mean, that's great that we're talking about tournament right now with our basketball program because they're playing that way.
For sure, I had no doubt about that. And I think again, as we talked about last time we were together, I just think the winter sports season is going to be fun here. I think this hockey team is one of probably 10 or so that has a chance, if they get hot and healthy at the right time, to win it all. I mean, I really do. I think this is a team that can match up with anybody.
Historically, he gets his guys, and they peak at the Big Ten championship. right?
Yep.
So he's going to have this team who's beating everybody right now and playing very well, number 6 or 7 in the country right now, going into that Big Ten. If he can keep that projection going and elevate the play in the Big Ten tourney, I mean, hell, that's great. That's that Big Ten possibly national championship written all over.
Yeah, I think they're right there. I think Penn State basketball is
pretty good. Wrestling's okay.
Yeah, I think it's going to be in the mix, at least for an NCAA tournament berth. And yeah, wrestling team, I will say that NWCA All-Star meet, Goon, it was I'm not sure why they did not have fans there. That just seems there's got to be venues there. I mean, I get they wanted it to be a flow wrestling thing, but having fans there and a live crowd reaction is not going to hurt your online product in any way, shape, or form. And that was the only thing that I think was missing. I thought they did a great job putting together the card, and I thought the wrestling was really good. And obviously for Penn State, I think all three kids showed you something and something pretty special for this stage of the season. Obviously for Greg Kirklead, it was getting over the hump and being able to hold off Cassiope.
He looks good. You were right.
At the end.
He looks a whole different.
Oof. Yeah, he is really solid. I mean, muscle solid. And I just think he continues to get better and better. The guy, and Carter Starachi, I'm telling you, Mekhi Lewis is Roman Bravo Young and Dayton Fix and Carter Starachi and Mekhi Lewis, and we'll see what happens. I don't think there's anything guaranteed in any future meetings, but if those two do go on and win national titles this year, I'm talking about Bravo Young and Starachi, I hope fans will appreciate how significant, because Dayton Fix coming out of high school was it was a given that he was going to be a multi-time national champion. Many were debating, is it going to be 2, 3, or 4? But he's going to be a multiple. Well, if Bravo Young beats him, and it's a big if, but if he beats him again this year in March, you're going to be talking about a 4-time NCAA finalist, and 2 of the losses will have been in overtime. So, I mean, you're not going to be sitting there saying this was a disappointing career or, any kind of a failure on Dayton Fix's part. But, I mean, Dayton Fix is an elite athlete. Mekhi Lewis is an elite athlete. Those guys are top-end wrestlers. I mean, above top end. And for Starachi to do what he did and ride out that third period against Lewis is as impressive as I think anything you're going to see in college wrestling this year. And then for Aaron Brooks, again, it's kind of the same thing. Kakaisen for Northern Iowa probably is not going to get credit for being as good of a wrestler as he is because of Aaron Brooks. And Brooks, Cal Sanderson talks all the time about wanting the wrestlers to take leaps and levels, jumps and levels from one season to the next. And that is not easy to do when you are a national champion, right? You have to have the mindset. You have to have the talent, obviously, but you have to have the mindset that, okay, I'm willing to kind of start from scratch again and build this thing back up and really hone in on areas that I can improve. And that is not, I hope people aren't taking it for granted that what you see in that regard here, because that is not an easy thing. When you are a national champion, it is not easy to tell yourself, I got to go in the room and bust my tail to get better and to really improve. And we've seen it consistently. And it is a credit, obviously, to the coaches and the kids themselves to be able to get the kids to do that as consistently as Penn State has. But, I mean, you saw it with Jason Nolf. You saw it with Bo Nickel. You saw it with David Taylor. You're seeing it with Roman Bravo Young and Carter Starachi and Aaron Brooks. I mean, these guys, I think you're going to see it with Max Dean this season. And you've seen lots of guys come back and repeat as national champions but not look as good as they did the previous year. And you've seen plenty of national champions not be able to repeat. But what is especially impressive to me is listen, Dayton Fix and Mekhi Lewis and a bunch of other guys at those weight classes, by the way, they are studying, looking at the film, figuring out their best strategy. They have great coaches all over the country now working with these guys, and they are busting their tails, and they have motivation. Obviously, I mean, Dayton Fix, Mekhi Lewis are as motivated as any wrestler out there. And you see the Penn State kids not just win, but they widen the gap. And what Aaron Brooks did with Kikaisen, I'm telling you, Kikaisen is really hard to score on. To get a takedown on him is really difficult. And it reminded me a little bit of when Ed Ruth beat Mac Lunas for the first time at the and I'm forgetting now if that was I think that was at the Scuffle, but it was like, I mean, he just tore him apart. And Lunas hadn't given up a takedown in like a season and a half, or maybe a takedown. And there was Ed Ruth getting 3 or 4 in that first meeting. And that's what, I mean, Kikaisen does not give up takedowns. And Aaron Brooks is just seemingly taking him down at will and making it look a lot easier than it is. But to get 4 or 5 takedowns against that caliber of kid, I mean, you are in pretty rarefied air here. You want to break down the Penguins Flyers game from the other night? That's the only other.
Well, the Flyers are a dog that's blind,
thing.
and the Penguins are kicking my dead dog. I mean, my
at least
dog,
the Penguins are kicking again, because for a while there,
the Flyers are on a 10-game losing streak. But you know, I have to say thank you to the Pittsburgh Steelers for avenging and beating my hated Indianapolis Colts.
You are quite welcome, sir.
Yes, it was a touch and go there. I don't know if I've ever seen such a bad third quarter of my life in an NFL game as the Steelers played last night. Yeah, it was pretty bad, but they came back and they got it done in time.
And you know, Kenny Pickett had a solid game, and without
wasn't great,
without
but he
Harris.
was solid.
No, and I think I was listening to a debate on ESPN Radio yesterday, and the one host was like, the Steelers have to go get if one of those top 2 quarterbacks is available, and he falls him. I'm like, hey, you're out of your mind. Yeah. And I'm not saying Kenny Pickett is definitively the answer, but we've seen enough of a sample size now that you have to allow that progress and development to continue and see if you get the right pieces and a healthy team around him, if that thing can go places. But I think you've seen enough of Pickett to believe that he could be that guy. I don't think you've seen enough to say emphatically, yep, there's your franchise quarterback for the next decade. But I haven't seen anything from Pickett that makes me think, no, this is not the guy. Seen some things that
what Big Ben says.
We got to work on this, but I really think you've got to. I think the Steelers will, and they're committed to it too. I think you've got to see now how this thing develops, what this offseason brings, how he looks throughout next year, and if it's not making significant strides between now and this stage next season, okay. But if he makes a leap or two from where he's at right now, that's your franchise quarterback there.
Great.
So they have enough pieces around him that are starting to come along. Pickens might have been one of the Steelers. The Steelers do have a way of getting the receivers. I will say that, but boy, Pickens is looking more and more like he could be an elite receiver here long term as well. So. It does look like we do have the World Cup on here as we're getting ready to wrap up shop here for our Tuesday program. It is looking like Team USA is going to pick up the victory over the Iranians. And what was a lot of geopolitical ramifications here.
Yes,
whether there should be or not.
Yeah,
there certainly is what it is. So
you throw it. We'll see you Thursday, Bubba.
Yeah. Oh, I will not be here Thursday.
What? I'm out of here.
We are traveling to Trenton, the wrestling team.
Beautiful.
So
it's beautiful this time of year.
I have what I will call my version of a Steve Jones weekend, and I'm looking forward to it. So I get to call the Penn State Rider wrestling match Friday night, State College football. in the state semifinals Saturday in
Mansion
Altoona against Harrisburg, a team that the Little Lions defeated earlier this season, and then back to Lehigh for the Sunday afternoon meet against the Mountain Hawks.
Get your work done, boy.
So looking forward to the weekend and hopefully 3 big wins to come back to and talk about next Tuesday. So, we will have next show will be on Thursday, but we'll be Ironheadless. And I'll be back on Tuesday. Until then, be good and be safe.
Make more good in the all-new Sportage X-Pro. Kia, movement that inspires.
Quaker Steak and Lube is throwing open the garage doors and setting up the umbrellas. It's patio season. Come enjoy great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube, but we're really amping up our event calendars for our favorite time of year. Visit thelube.com to find out what's happening at your local lube this season. Lunch, happy hour, dinner, or late night, indoors or outside, at Quaker Steak and Lube, you'll always find big flavors, friendly faces, and lots of fun.
New Trail Brewing Company proudly crafts their beers right here in central Pennsylvania. Brewed with only the best possible ingredients, New Trail produces a variety of year-round brands as well as weekly experimental recipes. New Trail Broken Heels is Pennsylvania's favorite local hazy IPA. This beer is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected Citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is perfect for a pregame tailgate all the way through the victory celebration.
What's the best mid-size pickup? Tacoma. What's the #1 mid-size truck in resale value? Tacoma. Want to get great gas mileage, 4 doors, and 4-wheel drive? Tacoma. Sioka Toyota of Williamsport has over 25 available right now. You can lease a brand new, never-driven Toyota Tacoma for just $379 a month. That's 30 months, $3,000 cash or trade, 10,000 miles a year. This is while supplies last. Buy yours or reserve yours today and see the Sioka difference. And remember,